Hi, my name is Jessica, and I'm coming to you from my dining room in North Central Kansas. And welcome to my channel, Heroborn Stitches. I'm going to try to let this run, this recording run just as long as I can, and as consistently as I can, because this feels very weird and very unnatural. And I'm not a very good editor, so bear with me. But let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a mom. I'm a Mimi to two amazing granddaughters. I am also an educator. I teach at the local university here. I teach accounting. How boring is that? Um, and I am a multi-crafter, or as my friend Erica said, pan-stitchual. I love to knit. I love to quilt. I love to cross stitch, and that's what this channel is going to be about mostly is my cross stitch. But there's probably some knitting or quilting that's going to interrupt there a little bit. So I'm looking off to my notes on the side, trying to stay on track here. Um, so what to expect from this video? I always like to set some expectations whenever I'm recording something, whether it's for work or whatever. So what to expect? First, I want to talk about why I'm doing this video, why I'm joining FlossTube. Second, I really kind of want to talk about my stitching journey, which is going to start really with the world's oldest WIP, and move into my temperature stitching. And I can really sort of tell that story throughout my temperature stitching, I realized when I was trying to make notes and put this all together. Um, I want to talk a little bit about my plans for the future. And there's also a couple of projects I would like to start that I would love your input and your feedback. So if you have any ideas on that, that's going to be near the end. But if you have any ideas on that, please, please, please feel free to let me know. Okay, so let's start FlossTube. Why am I doing FlossTube? Like most people that I have watched with doing FlossTube in their first FlossTubes, primarily it's to expand their Stitchy community and their number of Stitchy friends. I, much like many people on this channel, am an introvert. I do a pretty good job of pretending I'm not, but I really am. It's my job to talk to people and interact with people and be in front of people and speak. But when I come home, I'm exhausted. I just, from the entire process, I need to go hide in my room for a good few hours and not talk to anyone and pretend like nothing is going on outside in the world, just kind of refocus. Um, so yeah, to make more Stitchy friends and expand that Stitchy community. The next reason is really because I'm always looking for more ways to be productive with my crafting, with my stitching. I am I used to think I had just an ungodly number of WIPs until I went through and I kind of cataloged all of them about a month ago. I pulled out everything and I went through everything that I had started and put it on a big spreadsheet. I didn't know when I had started most of them, but I knew that I had started them at some point. I could give you a rough idea, but I didn't include that. And then I also included all of my kits, all of my things that I have kitted up and ready to go that I haven't started. And I had also a list of different patterns that I had that I wanted to start. And what I found really, like much to my surprise, was I did not have that long of a list of WIPs. I think in my mind it had grown and it had been just enormous and unmanageable. I think that's part of the reason that I started that list. So I didn't have that many WIPs. I had quite a few things that I had kitted up and haven't started yet. Um, and I would like to, I'd very much like to. And I had a really big number of patterns that I had purchased, love, want to start, want to kit up, and just have not. And I don't know about you guys, but I like my mother did a really good job of guilting me with things. And I have a really hard time starting new things sometimes, or even purchasing things sometimes because I think of all the other things that I should be finishing, that I should be working on. Um, I feel almost like I'm cheating on my projects and everything I've got on the list when I buy new things, but I still keep buying new things. And I always try to keep reins on myself, and I say, okay, I'm going to look at something and I'm going to say, okay, I love it. Do I love it more than the other things I have out there? And if the answer is no, I oftentimes won't buy it. And then if the answer is yes, of course I will. But part of the problem with that is that I'm kind of depriving myself a little bit. And then once I start buying, I just kind of go hog wild and I buy a whole lot right away. And yeah. So, anyway, that was a really long tangent to tell you that I try to be more productive. Um, Stewart's and Stitches, one of the first people I started watching on FlossTube, and I'm going to give him a little bit of a shout out later. He does temperature stitching a certain way, and I decided at a certain point to completely copy him. Um, and that is the sincerest form of flattery, right? So I went into my list of WIPs, picked 10 that I wanted to make some progress on, numbered them 0 through 9. And depending upon what this temperature is when I look at it first thing in the morning, and that's a little bit hard because sometimes it changes and I see the number change. I was like, ooh, I'd rather work on that one. But I've been trying to be good. So that has certainly helped me be productive. I kind of found WIP Go a little bit too late to start. I don't know, is that something you can start mid-year? I guess it is, but I know I'm 100% starting that in the fall, in January. But really, I want to. So, what am I trying to say? So, I really think that if I publicize my goals, tell you guys out there, it is a good way of holding myself accountable and knowing that I can come back and need to come back and kind of tell you guys what I've accomplished, of what I planned. Not that anyone is going to punish me if I don't, but yeah. Okay, some inspiration. I already mentioned Stuart of Stewart's and Stitches. I do not know how he came up on my YouTube algorithm, but he did one day. I didn't even watch very much FlossTube, but when he made his first FlossTube, he like showed up right away. And I was very intrigued because anytime FlossTube had come on to my YouTube previously, it had been like Floss Tube 123 or Floss Tube 35 or something like that. And so I was just really intrigued because it was the first one. And I sat down and I watched Stuart. And if anyone watches Stuart, you know it is really, really, really hard not to just really like him. Enjoy everything he's sharing with you. He's really, really funny, and he has a voice that I could just listen to all day long. So that is really where I started, and he was very much an inspiration. Not too long after that, another first-time floss tuber showed up on my YouTube feed, and that was Jason X Stitches, who is really a big reason why I'm doing this. In his very first floss tube, he mentioned something about having a Be Brave Day once a year, and that's sort of what brought him to floss tube. I absolutely loved that idea. Um, and also he is just he's wonderful. He is just wonderful to listen to. He is so earnest and just fun, and it just he feels like your friend from day one. And tied to that, recently Jason started a round robin, um, and I am involved in it. It is absolutely amazing. I There's 71 of us, I think, in I want to say 18 different groups. Um, 17, 18, something like that. And they're really from all over the world. And Jason put us in groups of 4 and kind of left us to our own devices to figure out what we were doing. And the group that I am in, Connection J, or as we have renamed ourselves, the Night Owls, we are, oh my gosh, those women are just amazing. We started talking from very early on. We talk all the time. We have our own little messaging app and thing that's going on. Um, and they are just inspirational. I just really, really, really enjoy them. And I know at this point that they are going to be lifelong friends. Um, so when Jason started his round robin, his intention was to have a floss tuber in every group to kind of help publicize the projects so everybody could see what people were working on. And I ended up in one of two groups that did not have a floss tuber. So I had been thinking about it for a while. I had been considering it, and my connection through the round robin really, really, really encouraged me to do this. So here I am. Um, okay, so and I will give all these people. I will link to all of them in the comments so you can find them easily because they're really worth watching. The third person that I kind of ran across, again, it was a very first floss tube that must just come up on my algorithm a lot, was Becca, and Becca is Stitching. She is just, there was just something very warm about her as she sat there and went through this amazing list of WIPs and drank her coffee or tea or whatever it was. Makes me think I need to go get some, honestly. And she just has such energy and joy that she's bringing to things, and actually makes me think of some things that I didn't think of previously. So really thought-provoking in some ways too, and beautiful stitching and a wonderful array of things. And she does a very good job keeping herself, it seems to me anyway, she does a very good job keeping herself on track. So I kind of hope to learn something from that. And then finally, this is not someone I found during her first floss tube, but someone who I went back and watched the first floss tube. And that is Ditsy Daisy Crafts, Pam at Ditsy Daisy Crafts. I think it was a recommendation from Jason X Stitches. And I went back and watched her first video. And early on in that video, she talks about her process into deciding to make a floss tube. And she talked about, I don't know whether it was as a friend or a video or something she watched that was, there were legitimate reasons for not doing it, and then there were a lot of illegitimate reasons for not doing it. And I realized that the things that were keeping me from doing it were mostly those illegitimate reasons. So yeah. So yeah. So that's why I'm here. Boy, that was really long. This is going to be an epically long floss tube if I don't stop. So okay. So I have a couple friends actually who always ask me the absolutely best questions in the world when I talk to them about doing something. I'm just seeing a weird piece of my hair back there. And I'm noticing I'm getting kind of schwitzy too. My dining room has an east exposure and it's morning, and there's an entire wall of windows to my right. And it is getting warm in here. So if I start like sweating, please forgive me. So anyway, I have a couple friends who really, really ask me the best questions. Anytime I am looking at doing something new, anytime I'm thinking about something, sometimes criticizing somebody, sometimes doing something else. And they always ask me the best questions. And I know without even talking to them, if I told them that I was considering starting a floss tube, they would ask me, so what new do you bring to the table? What do you bring to the table that was not there before? Why would people bother watching you? That is a really hard question for me to answer most of the time, because anytime I answer it, it feels like I'm being less than humble, I guess. It kind of feels like I'm being kind of full of myself. But so that is really, really kind of hard to do. And I don't really think of it like that. I am thinking of it more as building, I don't know how to say this. I'm not on FlossTube to take viewers or viewership away from anybody. I don't think I necessarily bring anything that isn't already out there. But so I'm not about taking like a piece of the pie away from anybody, because everybody who is out there does absolutely amazing things. I'm really kind of about building a bigger pie, making sure that everybody who is out here, everyone who is wants to be out here can be out here, feels like they can be out here, and just look at making the community bigger and stronger. Um, and so hopefully we will all benefit from that. I also have a couple of projects or ideas, crazy things that have been going through my head that I'd like to talk to you about. Um, and I will come to those sort of at the end here. Okay, so now on to the good stuff. I kind of have stuff over here to the side of me, hopefully kind of ready. I might have to pause a little bit here and there to kind of reset a bit, but that's going to create editing problems for me, so I'm not sure I will. You might just have to watch me fumble through things. Okay, as promised, the world's oldest WIP. I am going to put up right here what it is supposed to look like, what it will look like when it's finished. I have figured out how to do that on editing. But yeah, so I started this, I want to say very early 80s, maybe even late 70s. I come from a very big family. I'm one of six kids. There's four daughters. My mom is one of six kids. There's also four daughters. And anytime we went to my grandparents, what we did was we crafted, any of the females anyway. We were quilting, we were knitting, we were stitching. And so I started doing it from a very young age. And this is the first piece that I remember working on at all. I think it was through 4-H or something like that. Um, so I started it. I remember working on it. It's not counted cross stitch. Um, I have remembered it over the years. The saying on it is from ghoulies and ghosties and long-leggedy beasties and other things that go bump in the night. Good Lord, deliver us. And I could remember that saying and the floss colors and all of that, all of these years, which is crazy because I can't remember why I went in the kitchen most days. But yeah, so I'm going to show it to you just so much buildup. So I started this and clearly I never finished it. Now, there's a really good question here. Um, I know it's backwards, so you can't see it. And you probably can't see how horrible the stitches are. You can probably see how dirty it is because it's filthy. I was afraid to kind of give it a good soak and even much of an iron before I came on today because I was afraid what was left of the stamping might just go away. But if you could see, the stitches are really pretty bad. And there's like lots of knots and things like that on the back. Now, a really good question here is, I'm going to put this down. A really good question here. A couple good questions. The first one is why I still have it. That's very easy to answer. I am mad stubborn, and I have a really hard time walking away from things once I commit to them. And apparently that's even true when I'm 8 or 9 years old. So yeah, no, just mad stubborn. That's why I still have it. How I still have it is an entirely different matter. I really don't understand how I have it. I counted it up. This has literally moved with me 15 times, been through a flood in the basement, been through lots of different things, and yet it is still here. I still have some of the floss colors that I found that were kind of stuck on the back when I pulled this out. I might need to try to match them up to some DMC or something like this. So what am I going to do with this crazy project? I don't know. I don't know. Part of me just thinks I need to throw it away and get rid of it. But it seems like that would be a shame after all of these years. Another part of me thinks that I need to finish it. Well, actually, I considered at one point ripping out all the stitches and then putting them back in and finishing it that way. But then I really didn't have a whole lot of interest in doing that. So part of me, and I think this is what I'm leaning towards, wants to just finish it, leaving the bad stitches in, putting my stitches in now, and putting it on the wall. And it's a really good conversation piece. So tell me, I need some feedback. Tell me what you think. Do I need to finish this crazy thing, or should I just let it rest and let it die? I don't know. It has literally been decades and decades and decades hanging around, but I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. So we'll figure that out. Okay. So that is my world's oldest WIP, like I was promised. If you have a WIP that can beat me, please let me know. Um, I think all of us probably have a number of WIPs. Many of us do. So that could be, there could be an older one out there. Um, okay. So that's really the beginning of my stitching journey. I have absolutely no memory of stitching anything after that. I really think I moved into crochet really pretty heavily, again through 4-H. I did still have that first crochet project that I started and didn't finish, and it was one of those blankets where each square was a different pattern. And I had this series of blue red heart, like so scratchy. Um, you need like a band-aid after you knit with it yarn, knit with it, crochet with it. I couldn't knit at the time. But I did crochet a lot. And I just found, like I said, I just found that project the other day and I did give it to Goodwill. I don't know whether anyone wants it, but I knew that was something I was never, never, never going to look at again. So I don't really remember stitching at all after that until I was probably 17, 18 years old, near the end of my time in high school. And there must have been a stitching shop or something where I went to high school. I really don't remember there being something there, but I don't think I would have found this any place but a stitching shop. Um, but somehow I picked up this pattern. I will put it up here. Princess and the Pea by Hickory Hollow. Um, yeah, so I picked up that, and I remember thinking at that time that I was going to stitch it, and I was going to hang it on the wall for a daughter if I ever had a daughter. I wasn't wanting to have a daughter at like 16 or 17, but I thought someday I might, and I thought this would be a really cute thing to be on the wall. Um, so yeah, so I started stitching it. It is just on some like kind of off-white 14 count Aida, just using the called for DMC and metallics. I'm not really sure if Kreinik was around then because it was probably like 88, 89. Um, but there are some metallics in it. I'm not sure you can see that from here. And I started stitching this and it's really a pretty significant project for a first counter cross stitch project. But I was doing it, and actually, if you look at my stitches, I was doing a really, really pretty good job for the most part. This is also on my temperature stitching, because it is something, again, mad stubborn, would like to finish one of these days. And I know where I stopped and where I started. So I had gotten so far down here and decided I wanted to start doing some of the backstitch because it's a very backstitch heavy piece. And I wanted to do some of that backstitch and figure out like what it was going to look like when it was done. And I did like all of this clearly, and I got up to start to try to do it around her face and her hair. And she looks kind of weird there because there's no definition with the hand coming up and all of that. So I decided I wanted to do that. And I realized when I got up there, I really could not do the hair because I didn't have the window behind it done. For some reason, that was a huge barrier for me. I had no interest in doing the window. Um, Maybe I just wanted to do something else. I don't know. But I think I put like 3 stitches of the blue in the window and then it went away for an incredibly long time. So I've been doing temperature stitching for almost 4 weeks now. This has come up several times. I don't know exactly how many, but it's come up several times. And I have just been working on the window. So in that time, I've been able to bring the window up there. I'm going to be able to finish it at the top. I don't know what I'm going to do next, whether I'm going to do that back stitch or whether I'm going to do the Princess and the Pea across the top. I don't really know, but I'm going to get the window done. I'm going to let it have at least 1,000 stitches. It might stick around for a little while longer because I have had it so long. So that was really the next part of my stitching journey. So I went from ghoulies and ghosties to a very significant counted cross stitch project. Um, so there, like for my daughter that never got finished. She's 30 years old now. I did have a daughter, she's 30, and I have granddaughters who probably are getting so old they wouldn't appreciate this either. So I don't even know what I'm going to do with it when I'm finished, but you know, I mad stubborn, want to finish it anyway. Okay. After that, I don't remember stitching at all. Like, I mean, I hit a wall on that piece. I don't remember stitching anything until I was pregnant with my daughter. So I was like 23, I think, um, early mid 90s. Um, I know I'm giving my age away here. I don't care. Um, and there was a stitching shop in town that I don't know why I wandered into it, but I did. And that really is where my stitching journey super started. And I became aware of fabric that wasn't Ada. I became aware of all these designers, and we're still talking early 90s here. So that was a long time ago. But I discovered all these things that I didn't have before. And I think I was just very excited about it. And also, there was something about it, as anyone who stitches knows, there's something about it that is very soothing. And my daughter's father was not being very supportive and honestly not being very kind. So it was a really good thing for me to run across at that time. That is where a lot of my WIPs come from. Not all of them, but where a lot of the WIPs come from, that period in there. I do have some things that I finished that I'll like do in a later video. I didn't want to do a big WIP parade here. And I didn't want to show a bunch of finished objects here. First, because I don't have a lot of finished objects. I'm really bad at finishing things, like fully finishing things, especially. But because I wanted this video not to be like super long, and I think it's already going to be crazy long, because I can talk. I do it for a living. But one of my WIPs kind of come from that area, and I will show you that later. I started really getting into historic reproductions. Really like to stitch on very small stitch counts, very ambitious projects. I was young, I had young eyes, I didn't even need magnifiers to do that. But yeah, that's where a lot of that really started and took off for me. The WIP that I will show you from sort of that time, really kind of more after she was born. And I'm sorry if this sounds gross, but kids, she loved to take a bath every night, and I put her in the bathtub every night. And that seemed to me to be a great time to get some stitching done. So I had a bathroom stitching project. It was really and I didn't like stitch it when I was doing anything other than watching my child in the tub. Um, but I knew that that was an environment maybe I did not want to bring my good stitching into. So I started a series of ornaments. I'll show you what they're supposed to look like up here. Um, and these I have too also. So I did get a number of them done. Here's like a couple of the little kitties here, two of them in red, and here is two of them in yellow. Um, they are really pretty cute. They are very backstitch heavy. Um, I really got more done. I got a little green one done. And I think I got another one fully finished that maybe just got lost someplace. I have a memory of finishing another one that's not here. And then when I went through and found it, I had one that was like almost all done. Just I think some back stitching, maybe a couple eyes or something like that. And so this is part of my step temperature stitching also, to work on these. And this is what I have done temperature stitching wise. It has not been called very often. And this is not like a dye or anything in there. I had to frog some red and it just kind of stayed on the white Ada. So I think I want to say this is by Something Special, 14 count white Ada, just whatever floss was in the package. I did realize that I am almost out of red floss in the package. So I'm going, and that's part of the reason I think I might have stitched another one. So I think I'm going to have to find something that matches it if I want to finish it. But yeah, I don't know. I might make these into ornaments, little pillows. I have absolutely no idea. But that was my bathroom stitching project, as disturbing as that might sound. Um, the other things, the next things in my stitching journey, that are on my temperature stitching. So fast forward just a little bit. I moved to Kansas, and was still stitching, was still stitching a fair amount, still stitching a lot of antique reproductions, things like that. Um, and one of my favorite things to do at that time, and I still kind of love to do it, is if you go to an estate sale or sometimes an antique shop, garage sale, thrift stores, you can find the most amazing handwork, or even table linens that nobody values anymore, and they're there. And it always kind of breaks my heart because I know how much time and work someone put into that, whether it's a quilt, whether it's pillowcases. But it kind of breaks my heart because you can pick them up for like $2 each. And I know the amount of time and love and work that people put into those. So I love to buy those when I find them and just treasure them and value them. But I used to pick up all sorts of different pieces of tableware, whether it was napkins, I don't know, all different sorts of things, usually really small count, and I would use those in my stitching projects. So the next one I have to show you comes from this book. I know you're probably not going to be able to read that. It's like Sampler Antique and Needlework. It is an absolutely fantastic book. A lot of really, really, really good projects are in this book. And my next piece of temperature stitching is something from that book that I put in on one of those fabrics. So I'll do this. This is what it is supposed to look like. I had to kind of find a little picture of it here. This is what it's supposed to look like. And this is about how far I got. If you can read backwards, you see that the top, it says 1999. So I can guess that I was probably working on it around that time and really thought I might get it finished at that time. When I was going through things and cataloging things and I found this, I knew exactly why I had not continued working on it. And that is because of the fabric. And there's a little stain here. I'll get to that in a minute. But it was because of the fabric. I picked this fabric. It was actually a little bit darker than what you're seeing now. I picked this fabric because it was very rough and primitive, and I really thought this piece would look really good on it. And clearly I did a fair amount of it. I did a lot of the specialty stitches. I turned the Algerian eyelets into Smyrna crosses, as one does, I guess. I don't even remember doing that. But I was too far along on it to kind of throw it away when I saw it. But I also realized why I had stopped stitching on it. And that is because I started doing this over one down here with this saying. And this fabric was horrible to stitch on, absolutely horrible to stitch on. And especially over one was so challenging because it was so rough and so primitive. And I just stopped and put it away. So when I picked it up and started working on it again with temperature stitching, I have gotten this whole piece done down here. I did this little tree up here, and I think I started on this tree. And it's still not any better to stitch on, but I persevered and got it done. This is one that when it was called for temperature stitching, I groaned. I was like, oh, for the love of God, I don't want to do that piece. But I made myself do it. And now, since I'm past this, it's not so bad. Now, the funny thing about this is, like I said, I mean, there was a stain on, there was actually a couple stains on it. And so before doing the floss tube, what I wanted to do was kind of clean it up, freshen it up a little bit so it wasn't so grubby. So I went to go give it a good soak before I ironed it. And I cannot even explain to you how disgusting the fabric was. Like almost instantly, the fabric turned this color of like really super concentrated urine. I'm sorry, that's gross, but that's what it was. And no matter what I did, it just kept on coming out, kept on coming out. So like, yeah, it was a little bit darker. And it's not really from the stains because this one didn't go away. The other ones did. And I don't know whether it's just something that was on the fabric or whether the fabric was just that dirty. Because I don't remember washing it before I started stitching on it, but it was absolutely disgusting. Now I look at it, it's still rough, but oh my gosh, it's going to be so much better to stitch on. Just looking at the stitches, just looking at the threads, so much better. So I'm super glad I did that. But it was gross. It was really, really, really gross. And I discovered that like yesterday. So there. So that is my next temperature stitching piece and like the next kind of realm in my stitching journey. Um, and then it kind of comes to the last thing from around that time frame that is on my temperature stitching and a WIP that I'm going to show you today. And this will look like this when it's all done. It's called the Moon and Sun Sampler, and it's by the Scarlet Letter. It is on some 25 count, I want to say golden something linen with silk. It was a kit, silk that came in the kit. This is the last thing I really remember starting from that period of time in my life. I remember starting it. I don't know whether you can see that very well, but like there's another color that goes in this border. I had just started this border up here. I had just started it, and like I don't know, most samplers and the border in most samplers that I have done have some kind of pattern to them. So it might like have these three motifs that get repeated several times. This one does not. There's absolutely no rhyme or reason to the motifs. And I think I had assumed there was, because when one started repeating, I started repeating what I thought was the pattern. And that feels kind of weird to have my hand up there. I started repeating the pattern and it was not correct. So I needed to rip out a whole bunch there. Not a whole bunch, but just it's hard, so hard to rip out over one. And so I remember just putting it down and not picking it up. So really it had this like little teeny bit of stitching when I picked it up again, and I knew I needed to frog that and rip that all out before I started again. So around that time, my daughter was getting older. I did end up getting married and had my boys. And life just got really, really, really too busy to do a lot of stitching. And I kind of switched into knitting. I started knitting a whole lot at that time. My daughter teases me that that is how my neurodivergence comes through, that I like hyperfixate on one craft at a time. And I think that's probably true. And I just jumped right into knitting. As soon as I learned how to knit, I just wanted to knit everything. And I did very, 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 very limited stitching for a really long time. And that's probably why a lot of this stuff is sitting around. So I'm going to try to reset here a little bit. I'll be right back. Okay. I needed to put this in because I forgot to talk about that. And the next piece of my temperature stitching is supposed to look like this when it's all done. This is one of the rare things that I did during this time period, that wasn't really historic reproductions and things like that. And it is a dimensions kit, 14 count Ada, just called for floss that came with the kit. And the reason I was so happy when I found this kit, it just reminded me of my childhood and growing up, something that we did in my family always. And we always did puzzles. And we always got a puzzle for Christmas. And it was always a Charles Wysock. We always called it Wysock. And when I grew up and I looked at it, there is an I at the end. So I don't know whether it's Wysocki. I really don't know. But for some reason, I always say Charles Wysock. So correct me, please. If you know how it's pronounced, let me know. But we always did those puzzles. That was always the puzzle we got for Christmas. And so Christmas morning, after we were done opening presents, we sat down and did a puzzle. So I was so happy to find this kit. I did start it. I think I had this before temperature stitching done and this up here. And this is all kind of new. This like almost never came up during temperature stitching. And I was really upset because I really did want to work on it. It was one of those things that I really did want to work on. Um, but I think I really stopped working on it in part because it was on Ada and I was absolutely kind of a stitching snob at that point. And as much as I loved the subject matter, I was like, ugh, Ada, I can't work on Ada. I don't want to work on Ada. So that's why it kind of went away. Okay. Um, so the next WIP that I have is kind of this interim piece. It is when I was knitting a whole lot. And my daughter was getting a little bit older, and I had no idea what to buy her for Christmas, not for Christmas, for her birthday one year. And she also knitted. And so I thought I would probably, I thought I wanted to introduce her to cross stitch. So I bought this piece by Prayer. I don't know. You can see it. It's right up there. I have my notes in front of me. The Prairie Schooler, I think. And why it is GHI, absolutely no rhyme or reason. I think it's what was available. There was not a whole lot available to pick up at the time. And I saw it and it wasn't awful. And so I bought the Ada and all of the floss for her to start stitching it. I think I showed her how to do it. She sat down and did like one of these lines. And then she decided that she did not want to do it anymore. And it sat in her room, completely abandoned for years and years. And actually, when she moved out and went to college, it still sat in her room, completely abandoned. And when I was going through and cleaning things out, I found it. And I thought, hey, you know what? I kind of like that. Yeah, I've got all the floss, I've got the fabric, I'll try to finish that someday. So I did. I put it in my temperature stitching, and this is all that I've done so far with my temperature stitching. Whether I am going to do G and I'm not completely sure. I would kind of like to. I have all the floss and they are nice, but I don't know about you guys. I'm kind of a collector. And if I start doing something like that, then I will need to do the entire alphabet, which is a really big thing. So there we go. That is my next piece of temperature stitching. Okay, so after that, like I said, knitting, trying to get my daughter into cross stitch. Really did not do any stitching. So at some point there, while that whole process was going on, the local quilt shop, the owners of the local quilt shop that also had yarn and some cross stitch supplies, announced that they were retiring. And it had always kind of been a little bit of a dream of mine um, to own a store like that. So I started thinking about that as a possibility. I knew I probably couldn't quit my day job, but I also knew that that was something I was interested in. I felt really completely comfortable knitting. I felt like I could help anybody who needed help knitting. Um, Picking yarns, I was good there. I really felt at the time like I was completely competent and good in cross stitch because I had done so much of it for so many years. Um, Little did I know I was not. Um, but I focused on that. At that point, I decided to focus on the quilting because although I had quilted a little bit growing up, my mom is really the quilter, has been the quilter in the family, and I decided that I really needed to bone up on my quilting skills because if I bought this shop, I didn't want to stand there and not be able to answer questions to people about quilting when they came in. So I started watching like all the YouTube videos I possibly could about quilting. And different tips and techniques and really just dove head on into quilting. Stopped really knitting much at all. And during that time, I ran across the Fat Quarter Shop and all of the tutorials and things that they do. And it didn't take me very long after running across the Fat Quarter Shop to notice their floss tube and all the stitching that they did. And I stumbled and I just started watching that. And I remember thinking, as many of you guys who have been away from stitching for a long time have, that Boy, things have changed. Um, the last time I really stitched much at all, you had a choice between like white, off-white, and if you were lucky, blue or gray linen. There was nothing over dyed. There was water lilies out there. I still have some from back then. Um, but there just was not what there is out there. There was not all the patterns, all the designers, all the wonderful materials. And that really, really started me down that cross stitch road again. And I still quilt. I've kind of lost my knitting mojo. I'd like to get that back. We'll talk about that maybe in a future video. But really, what I'm doing a lot is cross stitch. So this next piece is one of the first pieces, not I'm maybe the first large piece I started after that, and it's supposed to look like this. Well, these are all individual. I decided to do it all as one piece. And this is by Hands On Design, and it's seasons two, a celebration of something. Yeah, I will maybe try to put that in the notes or something. And I started, I know it was August when I started, and my goal was, so I did this whole outline. It is done on Fiber on a Whim. I'm not sure the count. I think it's, I don't know, I think it's 32 count. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to look. I'm using called for Classic Colorworks. I did the border in black coffee, and then just called for Classic Colorworks here. This is Fiber on a Whim Cypress. It is 28 count Lugana, Fiber on a Whim in Cypress. Cypress. Um, yeah, so I started in August, and my little thread here, my loose thread. Yikes. Kept up, got through September, and then I stopped and got distracted with something else. So this also has hardly ever come up on temperature stitching, but when it has, I started working on October here, and I still have a little loose thread there. So that's, like I said, the first big project I started after my rediscovering stitching. So also from around that time, because of all the quilting and everything, I discovered Lori Holt, and I absolutely adore Lori Holt's fabric and her cross stitches. And if you guys have not done her cross stitch, it is so, so restful. There's something so fun about it. And every time I pick up one, I just want to keep going and going and going. So I started the Quilted Witch, which is, this is what it will look like when it's all done up here. And this is how far I got on it. Now I got really pretty far on it. There's a huge mistake in there that nobody other than a cross stitcher might notice. I got really far in it, and then I hit the skirt. Part of what I loved about the cross stitch was the skirt, but oh my gosh, it was daunting. It wasn't daunting. I was excited to get to it, but as soon as I started stitching it, I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to take forever because there's so many color changes, and I don't love carrying floss around, and I didn't want to count like crazy. Um, so yeah, I think I had done part of those first two rows of the skirt, and then I just stopped because I was overwhelmed. So this is on 25 count. I'm going to say Lugana in Prim. It's what was called for with the pattern, with all the called for DMCs. Yeah, super, super fun. I think once I get the skirt done, it is going to go super fast. Now, this comes up on temperature stitching all the time, like an absurd amount of time. Like I want to say probably almost 50% of the time it seems to come up. And so I have slowly been working my way down the skirt, and these are the edge of the skirt. So that's about what I have left to get done with the skirt. And then I can do her shoes and her broom and those other things. So yeah, super, super fun. Super excited to get this done. The next piece of temperature stitching, which again, probably around the same time, is Spooky and Sweet by It's So Emma, a division of Fat Quarter Shop. It's going to look like this when it's done. This is one of theirs, and I think it was last year's, maybe, I'm not sure. They do like a free quilt along, stitch along for like fall or Halloween and for Christmas every year in the summer. And this is one that I started, and I have been really good about keeping up with those. Um, this one I got stuck and did not continue. So this is how far I am. I can tell you exactly why I got stuck. I realized after I had done this lollipop and did this piece, and I counted the lollipop in, I want to say, from this little ghost. How cute is he? Um, and then I counted this in from the side, I think. And I realized when I got in there, I was one stitch off. And I was one stitch off on this lollipop. And at first I told myself, oh, it'll be fine. I will be fine. But the more I looked at it, it was just not going to look right spatially. And so I knew I had to pull out this entire lollipop. And I really didn't feel like frogging it, so it kind of went into the penalty box and never came back out until temperature stitching. There seems to be a little bit of a theme going on here. Whenever I reach a problem, it goes away and I don't pick it up again. So this is a piece that easily will be finished in less than 1,000 stitches. It's only come up a couple of times. I did rip everything out and redo the things that I needed to, but I'm eager to get that done and be able to get that off my WIP list. Plus, I think I moved into a new house about a year ago, and all of the house just screams to be decorated for the holidays. And so, yeah, so I'm eager to get this done and add that to holiday decorations. Okay, and then my last piece of temperature stitching is Little House Needleworks, I believe. I'll correct that in the notes if I'm wrong. And this is what it's supposed to look like when it's all done. And it is the Log Cabin Christmas. I think this is almost an artist's rendition. I couldn't find a good picture of it all together. Um, so I started this. This is on, I don't know what it's on. I'll try to put that in the notes. I know I'm using all the called for Classic Colorworks. I did the first two really pretty quickly. I was going to keep up with this. This was a stitch along through Fat Quarter Shop. And then I think I got distracted by something, and I just absolutely loved this piece and loved working on this piece. And so this was one of the first things that I selected for temperature stitching. So it has come up not often enough, but I have got this. Almost none of this was done when I started. So I started the third one, and I still have plenty to go, but Log Cabin Christmas is what it's called. And just so cute. Absolutely so cute. And again, great decorations for the holidays. Okay. So this video is also getting super long, so I'm going to try to wrap it up as much as possible. So that's the end of my temperature stitching. In future videos, I'll do a WIP parade, kind of show you some of the other things that I'm working on. And then maybe in a future video, look at finished projects, fully finished objects, things like that. But as far as plans go, I am doing the Extraordinary Birds stitch along like many of you are. I can hardly pull up without seeing that. I was a little bit late to the game there. I think I started about 3 weeks into that 6-week period for the frame. The frame just sold me. I looked at that frame. I kept on looking at that frame and saying, that is beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. I really want to stitch that. And it took a little while for me to allow myself to start that. But I did have the frame entirely finished within 3 weeks by the time the features started coming out. At this point, I'm entirely caught up. One just came out yesterday. So I am hopeful that I'll be entirely caught up there, but I want to keep working on that. There's a couple of other stitch alongs that I kind of committed myself to. The Christmas one, the holiday one through Fat Quarter Shop. I always do that. They're free, they're quick, they're fun. So I always try to do those, and that just started the other day also. So I want to do that. And also Luminous Fiber Arts has a Halloween stitch along going on that I committed to that also came out the other day. So I want to keep on working on those, hopefully keep up on those. I have a Fancy Lady I started. I really do think I had a number of Fancy Lady charts, if not kits, from way back. but I think they got destroyed in a flood or something like that. Because when I was going through and cataloging everything, I realized I didn't have a fancy lady, and the closest thing I had to a fancy lady was the Princess and the Pea. So I went out and I found one. So I have a fancy lady. I have started. My husband is drilling something. I hope you can't hear that. I told him no power tools while I was recording. He is clearly not listening. So I want to make some more progress on that. I'll show you that in the future. And I also have a couple of full coverage pieces that I'm working on that I really need to set some goals on and want to make some good progress there on those. And I'll show those later. Future videos, like I said, WIPs that are non-temperature stitching, I hope to cover, go through finished objects as well as fully finished objects that I have. Like I said before, I'm complete rubbish at fully finished objects, and I'll explain why once you see them. And then I will also go through like the kits that I have and the patterns if anyone's interested. Okay, so the projects I would like to start, and this is where I really need some feedback from you guys. So I would like to start a Stitchy Kindness project, and I need to explain that a little bit. So years ago, when I was doing a lot of knitting, and I want to say it was on Instagram, I'm not really entirely sure. There was somebody that was hosting kind of like a gift giving, fulfilling someone's wishes, knitting wishes things. And you could go on there and post what you wished for, something that you would like. And you could also go on there and read what other people had asked for, and what they wished for, and decide which of those wishes you could fulfill and could fulfill like relatively easily. And so people posted their wishes, and then people fulfilled other people's wishes on this platform. And it was the most amazing thing to see. Just pure generosity that is out there in the crafting community, the knitting community, and I know it's out there in the stitching community also. Um, and really, why I think about this is that we all have different seasons in our lives. We all have different abilities to fund our hobbies at different times in our life. And I know that there were times in my life where it was really a little bit challenging, whether it was to buy the fabric, to buy the yarn, or even the floss that I wanted to work on a certain project. Some of us have a lot more privilege in that area, and I would really like to encourage somebody who maybe wants to start a project who doesn't have the ability to do so. And I don't think I'm alone in that. Um, and let's face it, we all have stash that we do not use, and really might not ever use. Sometimes it's things that we picked up at one point and we really are not interested in doing them anymore, or we're really not excited about them. Um, those are wonderful things to pass on to somebody who really would enjoy them. And then also there's a lot of paying it forward there. There's been so many people who have influenced me and helped me in my whole crafting, stitching, quilting, knitting journey. I would absolutely love to pay some of that forward. And, finally, everybody likes to get gifts. I mean, having a little bit of stitchy kindness arrive in your email or in your mail is just fun. So there needs to be some location where you register your wish. Where people could register a wish. I have no idea what type of platform. I've been exploring different platforms, and nothing really seems to be working right now, or doing what I want it to do. I'm kind of thinking it might be easiest on just a Google Sheet, but I'm not sure how we keep people's information kind of private if we do that. So if you have an idea of a platform, please let me know. Examples of wishes, things like I've never been able to afford to stitch on any hand-dyed fabric, and I love it. I would love a piece of hand-dyed fabric that I could start a project on. Or I've never stitched a fancy lady. I've always wanted to stitch a fancy lady. And anyone who has stitched a fancy lady knows that the materials are kind of expensive. So maybe some specialty floss, or maybe I'm going out on a limb here, but maybe someone has a whole fancy lady kitted up that they really do not think that they will ever stitch. that they would be very comfortable gifting to somebody. If you're not a person who really needs things or wants things, I've seen, and with the knitting, people put things up there like, I really enjoy a good cup of tea. Please surprise me with a couple bags of your favorite tea. Or things like, I love exploring and finding new designers. If you are a new designer and you're trying to establish yourself, please send me one of your patterns that I can knit or knit. This is not a knitting thing that I can knit for you. I said it again, that I can stitch for you and tell you what I think. So something like that. They don't have to be big. They don't have to be physical, but just little wishes that are out there. So if you have an idea of a platform, please let me know what that would be. And let me know your thoughts. Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a horrible idea? Just kind of let me know what you think. I'm really open to feedback on that. I don't know whether it should be an ongoing thing, maybe an annual event that we just do for a couple months. I don't know. I don't know. The other project that I'd really like to start, I don't know whether to call it Stitchy Talk or Stitchy Stories or something like that. But recently, when Jason X Stitches Round Robin got kicked off, we did some Zoom calls and there were introductions on there and everyone kind of introduced themselves a little bit. And I was struck by how many similarities there were in all of those stories, and maybe just in how many stories I could find a piece of myself in with those participants. And I also found myself wanting to know a lot more about these stitchers. Um, and one of the most common themes that I hear on FlossTube is that people are wanting to expand, like I said before, expand their stitching network and their number of stitchy friends. So I really, really would love, I guess I would invite anybody who would be willing to come on here and have a conversation with me. We can just record while we're stitching and talking and visiting. Um, whether you're a floss tuber, whether you're not a floss tuber, it doesn't matter. If you've been thinking about it, come stitch with me. Come stitch with me. I'll record it. I'll do the editing. Not that I'm very good at it, but I'll do the editing and post it up there. All of our stories are unique and all of our stories are worth sharing, whether we're floss tubers or not. And I'd love to be able to be part of sharing your story. Um, and all of us introverts really long to be part of that community. And so I want to help kind of build that community for everybody. So maybe you might just, through doing so, you might be able to connect with other stitchers in your area or other stitchers who like to stitch the same things that you stitch. So anyway, I'm just kind of throwing it out there. So yeah, so if you would like to come and stitch with me, come stitch with me. All of my night owl girls, I expect you soon. So I have one quick question for you that I thought of this morning. I want to know what your annoying stitchy habit is. And I was thinking about this last night, actually. And I know mine is that the moment I'm done and I snip floss off the end, I just throw it. I just throw it off to the side. It ends up on the floor. It ends up on my bed. It ends up like on my clothes. It ends up everywhere. I just like chuck it. And I don't think anything big of it because I do the vacuuming most of the time. And it's just going to come right up. But I think my husband finds it really annoying that there are all these little pieces of thread all over the place. So it made me think that I think all of us probably have an annoying stitching habit. So share it with me. Please let me know what your annoying stitching habit is. So, okay, thank you. Thank you for your time and for allowing me into your stitchy space. If you would like to hear some more from me or have some feedback on the projects, whether it's the Stitchy Kindness Project or the Stitchy Talk, Stitchy Stories, please let me know. Consider liking, commenting, and following me. And thank you. Hopefully, I'll see you again if I'm ever brave enough to do this. And if you tune in, because I'm sure this is ungodly long at this point. So thanks.